All right. Well, thanks everyone for attending today. This is the second of three workshops, training sessions on our calendars and event registration system in Veracross. And my name is Chaz Woodstock. I'm going to be your instructor for the day. And in the second session, we're going to be focusing on the workflow for building out the event registration forms. And as I said on Tuesday, the goal of these sessions is really to be as step-by-step as possible, highly practical, not too much high level, really making it possible for you to leave these sessions and go start trying some of these workflows yourself, and ultimately feel comfortable setting up an event registration process, putting in calendar events, things like that. And so where the overall structure for today is we're going to take a look at a currently built form just so that you get a flavor for what are some of the features that you're going to want to set up, what do they look like, so you know what the end goal is, and then we're going to step back and walk through that process using some of those same configurations to build a workflow in real time, and you can get a sense for just how quickly you can go from nothing built to a working event registration form. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll dive in. Feel free if you have questions, feel free to throw those in the chat along the way. Love answering questions, or even come off mute if you want to. So let's connect this to our session on Tuesday. So on Tuesday we spent most of our time talking about how to add group events to the system in Veracross, and you may at this point want to take those events and have folks register for them. So I think we used we used a robotics event example on Tuesday. This we're going to use a musical for today, and you might want to have folks buy tickets or sign up to be part of it. And so this builds on top of those event records. So one prerequisite to actually having an event registration form is having added the events into the system that you actually want folks to sign up for. So we'll keep going over that, or we'll come back to that as we go through. What I'm going to do is just grab a visual of an event registration form to help us orient to what we're setting up. So what you're seeing on your screen right now is one of those event registration systems or workflows. It's a multi-step workflow that allows different constituencies, whether they're your parents or even folks who aren't in Veracross, meaning outside community members, allows them to go through a workflow to sign up for an event or events, and of course do other things like buy tickets, give you information you need to execute on that event, and so on. Even pay a fee, even pay and purchase things as part of that workflow. And what we're seeing right here in this first step, we're actually seeing the events themselves. So if you think back to Tuesday, we went through a process of adding events, putting a date, giving it a name, putting times. That's what you're seeing right here. And in this case, for this particular workflow, we've actually hooked this up to a number of events, because in our example here of Wicked the Musical, there's probably multiple events and you want folks to be able to sign up for one or more. And so that's what you're seeing here. You're seeing the events. In this particular case, it's been set up as not just a, hey, I'm going to attend, but I'd actually like to buy tickets. And so you can see that set up here with different prices, different ticket types. You'll learn how to do that. And ultimately, the person signing up can go through, say, okay, well, I'm going to go to the Friday night show, choose 2 of those adult tickets, continue to registration. It does have a part of the process that validates who you are. Maybe you have a Veracross user account because you're using the Veracross portal. That's the best, right? Because then it's connecting that sign up with the record that's in Veracross, that benefit of being in an integrated database. But of course, there's also the possibility to sign up as a guest if you allow them to. If it might be somebody who is, is not in Veracross, it's a community member signing up for something. So you can choose that registration. I'm going to go ahead and just put in some test data because test, just so you can, again, we're just getting a sense of what this looks like. In this particular case, the third step will on Tuesday, we'll actually be talking about some of the ways that you can create a form to collect additional data. We won't get into that today, but that would be another potential step. But where this particular form goes next is it goes to the summary and then allows them to choose to pay. Or even make a donation. Maybe they're buying 2 tickets and they're making a $25 donation. They can pay now, and of course, it will open up the payment process in Veracross, and then they can, if they, they can select a payment method, or if you're using VC Pay and it knows who they are because they logged in, they can even use one of their payment methods on file, which is really convenient for that person signing up. So pretty straightforward process, right? So here's our events. What are you signing up for? Who are you? Information about you, the person signing up, and then ultimately, in this particular case, paying. So let's step back into Axiom and just call out where some of these items are. So you can see this is what we call a registration form. And this is the record that pulls the configuration together along with your events to create the workflow that then you can grab this URL right here and put it in your portals, send an email with it, put it on your website, really anywhere you want to put that URL to allow people to sign up. So, and so a lot of that's here. You can see information like design. We'll take a look at that. The name. Here's where the events get loaded in, where you essentially associate the workflow with one or more events that are the actual things that people are signing up for. You have information about payment. Is this an event registration that's going to allow payment? If so, what is the payment? What are the payment details? Are you allowing them to pay offline and online, only online, things like that. General status, come back to those this actually on Tuesday. And then some of the other types of configuration you have here, like your custom text, written instructions you might want to add, questions, which is the forms, other things. Maybe you want to ask a family, based on the event, maybe that you're collecting dietary needs, restrictions, things like that, and so on. All right. So that was just getting you oriented a little bit. Now what we're going to do is we're going to build one, and we're going to go step by step. From the main page, I'm going to click over to calendars. Oops. Calendars. Calendars is where you will see the ability to create and manage your event registration signups. And from an implementation perspective, we get these, unless we made a mistake, we get these set up in your database during your core implementation, meaning that at the very beginning of your first module being implemented, we actually go through the install process to make it possible for you to use these, knowing that you'll join a set of workshops like you are today to learn how to use them, sometimes even months down the road. And what that means is that if you go to the calendars page today, you should see an event registration section down here that's ready and waiting for you to use that part of the system. This is where you can see forms that you've already created, forms that you may have archived. Just, over time, you'll end up with a lot of forms, and you want to have, make it easy to manage. So you'll archive forms, and those will go into this bucket. And then if you come up here and hover over the add button, you actually, this thing that says add published form, this is the link here that opens up a brand new event registration workflow. And that's where we're going to start. So if you happen to be following along and sort of clicking around in your database, you can click that too, and you should get a page that looks just like this. The next thing is we needed to give it a description. We need to, it's best practice to also put something in the URL so it's not just a ID. It just helps you and others who might see the URL know you're in the right spot. So we're going to go ahead and add I'm going to give it a 2 because there's already one in there in my demo database. So I'm going to do this. And then the other thing I'm going to do is the registration URL. So I'm going to go ahead and type Wicked Musical 2. Now this cannot have spaces in it. It will actually break the URL. Can't have any spaces. If you don't put in anything here, it won't break. It will just put in only the ID into the URL. And then the next thing I do, that's so far, this is all I do. I just put in a name, I give it some guidance for the URL, and I hit add. And I hit add. Now, right away, you'll notice that it created this view in browser. It actually created the URL, which doesn't look like much yet because we haven't told it what events or what the details about those events are or anything else. But it already has, and you can see this up here, it's already putting that Wicked Musical 2 into the URL. It's creating the URL because the system knows that this is going to be a workflow that will be available for folks to sign up. Once you finish it and get it out there into the wild. So the next thing, after you've given it the description and guidance for the URL, you want to decide who is signing up for this. Who is signing up for this? If this is something like, I've seen schools use this for offsite exam sign up. Certainly for fundraising events where open to the community, you might want to use one of the options that has this idea of like the public, meaning a not Veracross user. So it might be public and Veracross user. It might be public only if that's the constituency you're going out to. Otherwise, you might say, well, if this is offsite exams only signed up by our families, we want one of the options. We want one of the options that is only Veracross user account so that you don't end up with any duplicates because a parent happens to select guest because they forgot their username and password, and instead of clicking forgot password, I'll just put in a guest. It creates a duplicate that then has to be managed, and avoid that when you can. So make that use one of the types that is Veracross user. Now you'll notice there's a couple options here. There's Veracross parent student. This is a very unique sign up that is, the idea is parents are not signing up for themselves. Like think about this, like if the parent is signing up for musical tickets, they themselves are probably the person that are going, and so the default workflow is that the person signing up is part of the, I'm attending that, I'm going to go and I should be listed. Alternatively, though, if you use the parent student, this is a specific sign-up workflow that indicates I'm a parent, but I'm not the one going into these events. I'm not the one participating in these events. It's going to be my students. It also gives the opportunity, if a parent has multiple students at the school, to indicate, hey, Jimmy is going to go to this event, Susie's going to go to this event, and it allows them to sign up on behalf of their students. By the way, that doesn't mean that students couldn't sign up for themselves, but that would be more like the Veracross user, where I, the student, signing up for myself, I'm the one going into the event. So you choose the registration type. I'm going to have it be public and Veracross user for now. The next thing you want to do is you want to give it a little bit of design based on, you have a few options. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm just gonna control the banner color. I'm going to give it a light green here for a second, just so you get a sense of what this looks like. If I go refresh, you'll see that it changed the banner color up here, which will show your school name if you don't give it an explicit banner image. And so you can come back here, put in a hexadecimal. and control your banner. If you want to have, like in most cases, schools will use a banner image. Schools will use a banner image and then maybe a background similar to this test here. You can see how there's a image banner and then there's a whole background header. You can have both of these. That's usually what I see most often. You can, sorry, give me 1 second because I want to share one thing with you. You can take the, you can take a URL for a hosted image and put it in one of these. So I'm actually going to go ahead and do the banner image. I'm going to put that in there. That does need to be a hosted URL. And so for most schools, that means loading it into your CMS and then getting that publicly accessible URL and then pasting it in here. If I update and then I come back and I refresh, you'll see it switch there. And then if I grab the other one, which is the other background image right here, you'll see that, I didn't do that. You'll see it changes that there. So giving it just a little bit of branding so you know how to do that. One of the things I wanted to pass along is I wanted to give you, we do have a bunch of stock backgrounds for different things. If you would like to see that or even play around with it, I'm going to give you that resource there. That allows you, we just have a bunch of stock images that you can grab right out and put the URLs in there if that's helpful. Okay, so that's the design. The last couple things up here, and then we get to dive into the events. So over here in the middle section, you have status. Status is really more for you. It's not for the form. The form is just live or not live, like meaning there's no events that are in the future. But it can be helpful for you when you're managing a bunch of different registration forms across different departments. It can be helpful to say, oh, you know what? This one is published and it's currently open. It's out there in the wild. Actually, it's not out there, so it's closed. Ultimately, you can mark it archived and then it doesn't show up on your active list. So this is more for you to manage, not so much about the functionality itself. I did mention on Tuesday that there are two types of forms that have specific security tied off of the department specific security for admissions and development. And that is helpful because for these two departments, we expect there might be event registrations where they really want the overall registrations and some of the details to be only available to them. Things like in the development space, there are fields to put in like what's your goal for the event and things like that, and they really don't want anyone else to see those. It makes sense. And so you can code the event registration as a development and admissions. I should mention that you still need to get in here and create one for them. It has to be coded as development. It's actually, we consider it a bug. It will be fixed at some point where they can't get in and add a new one. There has to be one added with the development security, and then they can see that form. So you might, as somebody managing these, create one just with a name, code it as development or admissions, let them know that it's there, and then if they go to the calendars page, they will actually be able to like just click and see the published forms that apply to them. So just a little bit of a nuance there, and eventually we should iron that out, or we will iron that out, and they'll be able to add new ones too. All right, so I'm going to pause there and switch gears to talking about how we tie events to this workflow for the purposes of registration. So to do that, I'm going to come down here. Having one event, like if you have a registration that's all around a single event, that is perfectly all right, but you're not limited to that. You can have as many events tied in as you want. It's worth saying because I see schools get confused periodically on this. If you tie an event into this where the date is in the past, if you refresh, it's still going to say registration closed. All events, are closed because that is how it works if the event you've tied to its date is in the past. So just be aware that you want to make sure if you're testing or playing around with this to learn the system before doing a real one, that you choose an event where the date is out in the future. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and add one now in our demo database. The date of the demo database is in the past, so it doesn't matter. But for you, it will matter if you choose something that, say, has a date before 4/24/25. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to go ahead and find these. I happen to know what these, and I'll show it both ways. Happen to know what these are called. So I'm just going to add one here. So you can essentially add an event. I'll show how the search works in a second. But the other thing you have to decide when you're adding an event is, what is the sign up like? What is the sign up like? Checkbox is exactly that. It's just like, are you going or not? Like, yes, I'm going to that event. It's just a checkbox. What we saw earlier was actually this idea of a multi-ticket, meaning that each event, we'll take a look at that here again, this one. Each event has multiple things assigned to it. Multiple things assigned to it. If you want a quantity, it still can essentially have a ticket, but it will only allow you to have, a single entry of sign up with a single drop down. So you need to decide for your type of registration and the type of event, what's the sign up interaction look like? Is it just a checkbox? Are they selecting a quantity like a single ticket type? Are you going to give them multiple options with different ticket types? And you can go from there. Once you've done that, I'm going to go ahead and put a quantity there. No, sorry. I'm going to put a multi-ticket, and I hit update. It will pull in some of the default detail around that event here. If I actually refresh this now, oh, I think it got confused. Let me grab this fresh one again. Oops, page not found. Oh, because I haven't added any tickets. So we'll need to fix this. We'll need to finish it. So we have one of these here. Let me just try a checkbox. Moment. Wonder if I changed. We'll figure it out together. So we're gonna keep going, and I'll figure out what I did wrong. I'm actually gonna move this for a moment. I want to make sure. Ticket records. All right. Get rid of this. Bear with me. Just making sure that if we move forward that I didn't mess it up before I added this ticket. Make sure it knows. Yeah, I did something to this. Archived. Okay. Here we go. Let me guess. Registration. Oh, back in business. So I had messed it up. I don't want to archive it if it's still a real thing. So if we're going to go through, I'm going to go through the search here. It is worth saying that if you are adding events, that in the calculated description of an event, we actually put the time. You can see that here. That tends to trip up a lot of schools where they've added an event and they're searching by the name and they don't know that we, Veracross, added the sort of a calculated time before it. One way to get around that, by the way, is to use the percent sign, which means, it's a wild card, anything before it, and then I can type Wicked and it will find my events. So I'm going to add these here. I'm going to go ahead and add one more. Do a search, use the percent sign as a wild card, and then type find my events. I'll add this one over here. So, and then, like I said, I'm going to make one a multi-ticket, I'll just make a checkbox just so that you can see the difference. So we're adding these in here. So we've added these events. The next thing you have to do is you have to define a few things about that sign up. And to do that, you need to go into, if not the event, if you click here, you'll go to the event tab we saw on Tuesday. You want to go to the event registration record, which is, or the event registration record here. And from here, you have a bunch of options that will control the interactions with this event, including things like, so this is the one that's a multi-ticket, the actual ticket types. So we come down here, I'm going to add a couple normal. I'm going to call this one adult ticket, child ticket, make this 50, 30, whatever it is. The other thing I'm going to do is I want the adult to be at the top, so I'm going to have that be the lowest sort key, and then this one I'll just control the order so it doesn't go, choose something else if they end up with the same. The other things you can do is you can choose to have a total quantity and a quantity per registration. If I don't want somebody getting more than, say, 3 and maybe more than 2 child tickets, I can put a maximum quantity per registration. You'll see that in a second. You can also say, is there a total across registrations, meaning everyone who signs up? Maybe you have an auditorium, and so you need to be careful, and there's really only a certain number of adult tickets or child tickets. If it really cuts across, it's more about total seats in general. That actually goes up here. What's the maximum capacity? So I could do something like 150, and then between the tickets purchased in adult and child, it won't allow it to go above 150. The other thing you can do here is, it could sort of follow both. If I had a normal, I don't know, box ticket, and there's only for like 5 of those, I could do something like this. So 100, and essentially what this is saying, it's saying in total, I can't have more than 150 across all of these, but specific to box tickets, I can't have more than 5. And then no one can use this particular ticket type anymore. So we'll keep that in play for now. Do something like that. We're updating it here. You also have other options. We're going to talk about discounts on next Tuesday, some of the more advanced features. But you can also do things like contact email, make it easier for them. If somebody purchased it, do you want somebody to receive a receipt that somebody signed up? That can be a lot. Obviously, they can run a report and see all the people who signed up. But if you wanted them to get a, per registration email saying, hey, somebody just signed up for your event, you can do that and put in that email address here. Let's go back. Remember that I can get to my form. The URL for my workflow is right here. So if I click it, you now see that you can see some of the settings we put in. We put in 3 different ticket types. We gave some quantities to these first 2. I forget if I did. Oh, I guess I said 1 here, 2 here, 3 here, maximum. And then you'll notice that for that other one, I just said it's just a checkbox. So you can see how there's a difference here. So depending on the type of sign up you want to do, you're going to choose, you might choose a different sign up method, sign up or tickets. You can be really creative. We call these ticket types. Certainly you won't find documentation on how to do other things with this, but I have seen schools use these ticket types for other things, right? Like not only signing up, but if you would like, trying to think of, I've thought of, seeing things like, a number of t-shirts or something, if it happens to be the type of event that requires t-shirts. So there can be, you can use this in many creative ways. Again, you won't find any documentation on how to do those types of things, but if you get to know the features, you can do a lot of helpful things with event registration. All right, continuing on. So we created 2 different, we tied these events into our event registration. We gave it some particular settings. The next thing that you want to do is you want to start putting the contextual instructions and text throughout your process. So if we come back here, for instance, maybe you want to put some instruction text up here. Or maybe you don't want to use register, the word here, or step. Maybe you want a different name. You want different text here. How do you do that? So from within your registration form configuration, these next two tabs on the left are where you will actually end up putting a lot of that custom text. So for instance, on the instructions tab, every possible page of your event registration workflow has a box where you can put text. Well, I'm not going to demonstrate it today. And again, this is another thing that you won't find explicit directions, or at least I don't think so, in our documentation. These do support simple HTML, things like bold or link. I've seen schools put a link to, say, a hosted PDF of policies about something. Maybe if there was a full weekend event, they wanted to put a link to a policy document or something like that. You can do a lot with these. The only limitation I want to make you aware of that almost no school bumps into, but just because some have, is that you can probably do, I don't know the pure number of characters, but you can probably call it 2 word pages long of text. I've seen schools try to put a whole 5 or 6 or 7 pages of text with links and everything else, almost like a contract. It won't support it. It will stop. I don't know if it's 5,000 characters or what it is, but it's about 2 pages worth. If you go above, if you would want to do that, you really need to link it. You can't put it in the instructions. Besides, it doesn't look very nice. And so just to put in some instructions here, if I just put, please sign up below, you can sign up below, and you will be able to pay at the door if you want to, just to make something up. But if you add this here, and update with this on the instructions, and then you refresh, you'll see those start to show up there. And like I said, if you know a little bit of basic HTML, you could do things like make certain things bold or italic and sort of create a nice couple blocks, 2 or 3 blocks of instruction text, framing things up. You can envision that would be really helpful for, one of those common use cases I see for this tool is external sort of end of year or off-site exams, and you want to put a bunch of instruction here for the students or the parents signing up around, how that's going to work for those off-site exams. So that's where the instruction text goes. The custom text is like the buttons and maybe a custom closed text. So for instance, if I wanted to not call this step, if I wanted to call it something else, like maybe I wanted to call it, I mean, this isn't a great example, but if I wanted to call it page. Oh, sorry, I was thinking about it the wrong way. So instead of if you want to control what it says right here, you could envision that if you were using this for that other example I'm bringing up, that exam, you might not want it to just say events. You might want it to say exam sign up, something like that. And then it's showing the exams, the different offsite exams that are available to students. So that's what you can do here. Obviously, at the bottom, you also have this, if you didn't want to say register, maybe I wanted to just say next. So what I could do is say next here, put that in, refresh. You can see now it just says next. So you have some options there for dictating the text on your event workflow. So, so that's what these 2 tabs are for: the custom instructions, custom text for the buttons and headers and things like that. And you'll notice that on each of these pages, like if I go to the next page, this one is called the login page, but if you also go to the next, I'm going to just temporarily go to the next one. Give me a second here. summary page. You'll notice that both of these, if I go to instructions, you'll see here's the you have the event selection, then you have the registration page, and that was where you sign up as, what I did as a person. The confirmation instructions would be on this page, the summary confirmation page. So you can see that there before they go on. All right, so we've talked about instructions now and some of the custom text. So you want to get those in order. Now, last thing about payment. So payment, you can have online payment or not have online payment, and have things to purchase or not have things to purchase. The assumption there, though, is if you are not setting up online payment and you're setting up a scenario where you have these ticket types and showing prices. So if I go back to I'm just going to refresh, which goes back to the beginning, and having prices, you need to communicate in some way how you're going to collect that. Like Veracross doesn't have any default text that says, well, the school didn't set up online payment, and there's a message to families, you'll pay at the door or something like that. So just a quick best practice there is, if you're not going to have online payment, you'll want to give instructions, whether it's here at the top here or even on the final registration page. The amount shown above will be collected at the door, however you want to do that. Obviously, if you are allowing online payment, then you would set that up right here. And a few things about this. So you can see there is a payment type with a bunch of options here where you can say, I want credit card and later, credit card and ACH, only ACH, and so on. You can see the different options here. You absolutely want to choose the gateway. Absolutely want to don't leave it up to whatever the first use case was for your payment gateways in Veracross that then became the default. Be intentional about that, which means coming in here and saying, I am going to choose our BlueSnap gateway, payer pays fees for credit card, same for ACH. And just in case some of you have not really used Veracross Payments, VCPay Core before, you'll have these gateways listed with either PPF or SPF. Sometimes we do list the entire name. Most of the time we put PPF or SPF. That means who is paying the convenience fee for the transaction. That's like, and you've seen that online before yourself when you've bought things like maybe if there's a credit card, because that tends to be a percentage, maybe that is payer pays and it's going to tack that on when they go through the payment process. You could do the same. There are transaction fees for ACH. Most schools tend to have the ACH, since it's a flat rate, at least most of the time it's a flat rate. They will choose the ACH to be school pays, which means the parent doesn't see the fact that there's a transaction there for the ACH. So you'll select that, which will then set up. I'm going to put credit card and ACH. So I'm selecting both the payment type and the payment method, or sorry, the payment gateway that I'm going to use, which also indicates or determines who's paying the convenience fee. So you'll want to work that out and make sure that gets plugged in. If you're outside of the US, by default, the currency code for this, I believe, is USD. If you are outside of the US or in a different currency, you'll need to put in the currency code there. You can see that here. But in any case, that's the payment section. And then from there, what that does is if somebody is paying for something, it's going to make me fill out this form again as a guess, which is okay. Go through here. What that's going to do is, as I confirm the registration, one of these must not be set up for real, so I just don't know what our test gateways are. But in any case, what I would expect, you saw that at the beginning, we actually had this set up correctly, where it popped up a payment page to go through a payment workflow. So you will want to consider payment. The last thing I'll say about payment before we move on to our last couple things of the day is that um, uh, if you are doing Veracross student billing, there will be a way to export. If you the event registration system was built as a point of sale, so it does not automatically place pay later items as charge items on a student's account. We do have a workflow where you can use the student billing import to import the items that were purchased. So you can do a workflow, but it is still a manual workflow to do that. Because this was, at the time, this was built purely as a point of sale. And so it doesn't have an automated integration, at least at this time. So just a quick note there. All right. Let me check my notes, make sure I'm clear on where we are going next for our last couple items. Okay. All right. The last thing we're going to do is I want to walk through this. I want to walk through this and show you, make a loop back to our event detail screen where we were on the detail screen we were on Tuesday, and show you how the sign up impacts that event. I am going to actually turn off payment for now. I'm going to turn off payment. I'm going to refresh our workflow. Come through here, select a couple things, register as a guest. Just going to use my name here for now, put fake email. Summary telling me what I'm going to owe. Confirm registration. Now, when a family goes through this workflow that you've now seen a handful of times, when a family goes through this workflow, the benefit here is it's capturing that data and putting it back on the event. Now, we're going to talk about sort of how do you monitor who's paid or not. We're going to do a few of those things around the submissions themselves next time. But I do want to show you how the data is coming back to the event. If I go back to our configuration here and I go back to this multi-ticket event, what's happening is it is actually taking the person signing up. In this case, I signed up as a guest, so it's creating a new person record in Veracross and then putting an attendance record for this event on that person to register that person did sign up for this event. And you can see that if you go into your event, you'll remember this from Tuesday. If we go now to our event attendance tab, you're now going to see this. This was just added. And actually this one here a second ago, that was my test. But this was added so that you can see here's the person. If I go into them, you're going to see that email at gmail.com that I put that fake email. But it puts the people on the attendance tab as confirmed because they signed up. Of note, to tie this back to our session on Tuesday, we talked on Tuesday about you might have a certain set of folks invited to this event, either through the groups or the classifications. And we talked about coming to the event attendance tab and saying, yes, I want to take attendance and I'm going to default to invited. Here's why that's really powerful. Let's say that you're inviting to the musical. Let's say you're inviting to the musical all the upper school families, and you want to know, you probably wouldn't do this for a musical, but you could translate this into a scenario that I'm sure you could conceive of, is I want to know who actually did sign up and who didn't. And I want that to be explicitly captured. If I have set the classifications and or groups to explicit groups of people, and I come down here and I say, yes, I want to default to invited, you'll remember that it actually created a record for everyone that that event applied to, also allowing you to then make changes like add ad hoc people. If you knew there were people that were not gonna be not actually gonna come, mark decline. We talked about that towards the end of our session on Tuesday. The brilliant thing there is then if a person signs up and they already have a record, then it's going to mark that record from invited to confirmed, thereby giving you clear data points for, hey, we invited all of the ninth grade. We see that 50 of the ninth graders or 30 of the ninth graders did sign up for whatever this sign up was for. All the rest of them still say invited. And to take it one step further, whether you're doing that where you're capturing everyone who's invited or not, or you're doing it this way where you're just adding people who explicitly signed up, either way, the event record is creating communication tools for you to make it easy to go out to the different groups of people. So for instance, if I come over here to communication on the left, I now have easy to pop into these groups where I can quickly send an email to everyone confirmed. So if I click this, it would open up my my mail to, my Gmail, my whatever is set as a mail to on my laptop. It would open that up with an email distribution list to go explicitly to the people who had confirmed. And in the example I listed a second ago, where you've explicitly told it that everyone we applied the event to, we want it to track an attendance record, you would also then have that chance to say, I want all the people who are still invited, which is going to be, the unconfirmed folks are going to be the people who were invited, but have not gone through the process and confirmed yet. So maybe I want to send a reminder and say, hey, remember about this, please go in there and sign up. So it's giving you these communication tools to make it easy to manage the different folks signing up, or even the folks who are invited who still need to sign up or did sign up. And you can see some of the other options here. So really, really powerful once you start bringing these two parts of the system, the event registration with the calendaring system and the event system in Veracross. All right. So I've gone through the things that I wanted to cover. While you think of whether there are any schools, questions that come to your mind or even different scenarios you want to ask about, while you're thinking about that, let me tell you where we're going next. So just call this the trailer for the next the final session. There are some really good features that we're going to dive into next time. Not only are we going to spend some time looking at how to run lists and a few things related to the people who sign up so you can know who paid and who didn't. How many tickets did we have, sell in different categories? What's the total number of people that signed up for these different events? We're gonna cover that. We're also gonna cover a handful of additional features on the event registration sign up itself, including we're going to talk about how do you capture donations? How do you set up donations as something to capture, which a lot of schools use for, say, alumni events or different types of events where they want to allow folks, especially if it's a fundraiser, to not only sign up for the fundraiser, but have a chance to just make a gift right there. We're going to also cover the discount code. Maybe you have a special price for staff and faculty, and you want to allow them to use a code to get that special pricing. So we're going to cover that. We're also going to cover the form builder. How do I build a form to capture detail that I'm going to need for my event registration sign up? So that could be things like dietary restrictions. Are you willing to volunteer for the event? Things like that. So we're gonna learn how to build those forms, and even though we won't go into the policy system, how do I tie in, if I'm using the Veracross policy system in, say, enrollment or otherwise, how do I tie a policy in? And that's a lot more helpful for, say, a field trip, some group of students going off campus. Maybe you want to have it captured in the policy aspect of this of Veracross. So there's going to be a few other things we'll cover as well as that, but that's the trailer. And we're going to go through those features with another example. We're actually going to use a fundraising example on Tuesday to go through our final session. So I will stop there. Like usual, I hang on for a few seconds to see if anyone's typing. If you need to hop off or grab some time back before your next meeting, if that's where you're going next, feel free to do so. Really appreciate you taking the time to join me today. All right, thanks. See you on Tuesday.